This is going to be quite a ride. I'm Liam, he's Rob, and welcome to the Hey Guys podcast. This week, we look back at what I still think of as a modern movie, but one that actually depressingly came out 15 years ago. With Tron Ares due for release this year, it seemed as good an excuse as any to take a look back at 2010's ludicrously stylish Tron Legacy. As amazing as Joseph Kosinski's visuals are, though, as utterly fantastic as Daft Punk's score might be, is it all ultimately derailed by some decidedly ropey de-aging technology and a second half that, simply put, forgets to be fun? Rob, I've always had something of a love-hate relationship with this movie, and upon revisiting it, I mean, those feelings remain as strong as ever. What I love about this movie, I adore, but the things that don't work, well, I think ultimately it cuts so much deeper as Legacy invariably falls short of the movie that I wanted it to be. And actually, the movie that it is for like 50 minutes, it reminded me a bit of Bram Stoker's Dracula. Like when I think of Bram Stoker's Dracula, what I actually think of is the first hour, which is all iconic, the stuff in the castle, all that jazz. And when I go back and rewatch it, I'm like, oh yeah, the second half's a bit of a mess. The exact same thing with this film. It peaks at 50 minutes. And when I say it peaks, it really peaks. And then the rest of the film, I'm just like, oh yeah, there's a reason I can't remember the second half.
I mean, on paper, I think I said this because we've covered Tron, the original one. On paper, it's a film I should love. It's everything for me. Like you've got the adventure side of it, the bright lights. You know, it looks great. It's a computer game ish. I should love them, but Tron is a bit of a mess, the original, and then Tron Legacy. Jesus Christ! And yes, all right. I mean, first of all, 90% of this film is visually stunning. There's no way around
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
It is
yeah, yeah.
visually stunning. 10% is young Jeff Daniels. Fucking Jeff Daniels, Jeff Bridges. And oh my God. And the problem is, it's not even like watching it in 2025 now,
Mhm.
saying it was bad in 2010.
Yeah,
15
yeah,
years ago, it was
that's one thing
terrible.
we probably need to make clear is that the de-aging technology and the clue thing, where it's being obviously performed by Jeff Bridges, but they've de-aged him to look 40, which kind of needless because he was only 60 when they filmed this. They really could have just shaved his beard and tried, done a bit of digital jiggery pokery to make him look younger. But instead, they've gone full digital head. It looked terrible in 2010, and it looks even worse now.
I don't think that was, I mean, yes, terrible. I agree with you. I don't think the issue was them trying to make him 40. The issue seemed to be that they were playing around with it to make him look a bit like Sam Flynn.
Mhm,
Like you
mhm.
could see that they were trying to make, okay, this would be his son, so we'll try and give him the same sort of facial features. We're not going to give it to Garrett Hedlund because we're not messing with his face. So we'll fuck around with young Jeff Daniels' face and try and make him look a bit like. I don't know. It was just a.
I don't
We'll
think
cover
that's
it
the
all.
issue, regardless of who they're trying to make him look like. I think the only issue is the fact that this is top tier Uncanny Valley stuff.
Oh,
This kind of
it's
reminds me of Polar Express stuff, Dead Eyes. As soon as if you see a still of the face, it almost passed muster. But as soon as he starts talking and you can see the mouth move, it just doesn't work. But what I will say in this movie's defense, well, I don't want to say in its defense because this film is one of those issues where I'm like, toxic positivity must have taken hold because I just can't believe that somebody during development didn't put their hands up and go, guys, this just doesn't work. I'm not against like using it a little bit as like showing off, but use it sparingly at best. The fact that the camera is on him, he's basically just a character in the movie. It's absolutely unforgivable. But no movie has done it right. The only one that's come close, bizarrely, is I think we mentioned it a few weeks ago, is Samuel L. Jackson
in
in
Captain
Captain
Marvel, but
Marvel, and that's
all they
only
had to
because he
do
looks exactly the same. He looks
all
exactly
they
the
had to
same.
all they had to do was put a wig on him and he was fine. He didn't
Exactly,
really need.
but
So I'm all right
go,
with
oh,
them de-aging him at the beginning when he's telling Sam a story. That's fine. But then when they double down and they go and they've got fucking Clue basically for like the latter half of this movie, it's Clue,
yeah,
Clue, 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 Clue. It saturates it a bit and it gets too much, and you
it's
can't
just
help but
distracting.
yeah, exactly. Thank you. You can't help but not concentrate on that part. And you're right. The second half of this is a bit of a mess. The first, and I think we said this last week. I don't know what film fucking Michael Sheen is in, but he is not in Tron Legacy. He is in something completely different. And he is fantastic. And I wanted more of him. Maybe have him be the bad guy. Maybe have him be the the guy that's ruling
Maybe
the grid, as they called it.
the problem is they're trying to make like two movies at once. And I know we've skipped, I feel like I've got so much to say about the de-aging thing, about how, like, even the Dial of Destiny didn't work. As soon as he started moving, it fell to pieces. And I actually thought like this was maybe the first example. It wasn't. It was 2006. It was X-Men Last Stand when they de-aged Charles Xavier and Magneto. And the reason nobody remembers that is because nobody really remembers, nobody has a particularly soft spot for X-Men Last Stand, despite the fact that that movie made tons and tons of money. But to bring it back to Martin Sheen, he is good in this film. I do like the fact that he's swinging for the fences and doing his whole David Bowie thing. I'm not convinced it belongs in this film, but it's here and it's fun. But this film is trying to basically what I wanted it to be. Because when I think of Tron, I don't really think of the story. What I really think of is the aesthetic that they're going for, and like you said at the start, like the idea of Tron, the world. And when I was growing up and I watched Tron, and we obviously mentioned this when we did the podcast, I loved the idea of Tron, but even watching it in like the late 80s, early 90s, it already looked shit. Like, you know, I think it was released in 82. By the time I watched it, it already looks so old-fashioned. And obviously now it's kind of come around the other side where it's almost so bad that it becomes quite charming. This movie looks how I wanted Tron to always look. And, you know, in my head, it was almost like, oh, you could just remake Tron and just have it with these visuals. And the thing is, they kind of do that for the first half, where they have the build-up, they have the light cycles, they have the disc battles. Are they just called disc battles? Is that it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, whatever it's called.
Well, it's better than them having highlight like in the first one, or as you called it, jai or whatever you called it.
Yeah, that was garbage. So for like 15 minutes, they're basically like, we're just going to remake the first film. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh no, we actually want to make a proper sequel. And that's why the second half, not only is it a bit of a mess, but it feels so rushed. Like all the stuff with the ISOs and the purge, I just don't give a fuck because we're not given enough reason to care.
That's it. And
there's all the stuff, like you said, with Martin Sheen, he just comes in and disappears before you know what's going on. I don't know what's going on.
They had the purge as well. And all right, I'm all right with that because they mention it all pretty much in flashbacks. I was going to say back flashes.
Yeah. In
flashbacks. It's fine. You've got these weird sentient programs that come out of nowhere, and now they're all dead except for Olivia Wilde's Cora. I'm all right with all that.
It's an interesting concept. I like it as a concept.
What I wanted more of was they're building up the seeds for this revolution. There's meant to be a revolution. There's going to be a revolution. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, the revolution ends in Castor or Zeus's...
In his bar. Yeah. Out of the blue, one dude shouts out, kind of rebel. Everyone has like a little fight. They get killed immediately. And you're like, was that it? Was that fucking it?
Because then all of a sudden, it just goes to the second half then, as you've said, where it's just them on this massive ship, loads of orange guys, blue guy.
Wait, just to be clear, the train, which just happens to be there, which is just going to take them directly to where they need to go. It's just a fucking magic train. They have the whole sequence, like you say, after the fight in the bar, which is kind of cool. Like so much of this film saved by the soundtrack largely because the fight itself is okay. They end up having that lift sequence where they drop down. And as soon as he gets up the lift, the whole thing is like Jeff Bridges doing his Zen thing. It's like, oh, you know, I'll just be still and like, you know, the answer will appear to me. And he literally just looks out the window and goes, oh yeah, there's that giant train which is going exactly where we need to be and it's empty. Fuck me. And it's full of those fucking, you know, ISOs. It's so rushed. It's so crammed in. And by the end, you're just like, I just don't give a shit, sadly.
When did Jeff Bridges become, I don't know, yogi? Like, is it a yogi? Like, I don't know. So, as you said,
spiritualist hippie kind of thing. Yeah,
because he wasn't that in the first one.
No, I think what they were trying to go for was that, you know, because the two sides of it, again, another thing. Sorry, I'm jumping around a bit here. But this is linked to what you said. The whole NCOM thing and Cillian Murphy, I totally forgot Cillian Murphy was in this film. I was like, oh, Cillian Murphy's in this film. And then he's not in this film for the rest of the film. He just disappears.
He's even uncredited.
It's crazy. It's so like he just appears. And I thought there was going to be this whole thing where you've got the head of NCOM, the CEO, who seems like outlandishly evil, which I fear is actually painfully accurate in terms of modern CEOs of tech companies. And I thought that was going to play against Jeff Bridges being this almost kind of, what would you say? Like, this film is so influenced by Atari. If you go back and watch documentaries on Atari back in the day and Jeff Minter and all those guys, they're not completely altruistic because obviously they made a lot of money, but they're these like hippies just kind of riding by on their shoelaces, you know, being creative first and then making money second kind of thing. And that's, I think, the vibe they're going for is this altruistic hippie 70s style tech CEO versus the modern CEO of Encom. Again, a potentially interesting idea that goes absolutely nowhere, goes absolutely fucking nowhere. And it's such a shame because, again, there's a good idea there in the same way that there's a really good idea with the ISOs and the Purge. But like everything else in this film, it all gets crushed into the second half and it never really goes anywhere. So it doesn't really have an impact.
I don't understand as well why they need to keep shoehorning a Dillinger in. I appreciate this is the second one. Like you said, Cillian Murphy plays Edward Dillinger. And in the new remake, and I know we're going to talk about it, Tron Ares,
Mm-hmm.
uh, what was his name? He played Quicksilver in the
Which one, the Marvel one or the
no,
Fox one?
the Fox one. Oh, what
Oh
was
yeah,
his
yeah, yeah.
name?
The
Evan
good
Peters.
Quicksilver. Yeah, Evan
Yeah.
Peters. Yeah,
So
he's
Evan
good.
Peters. So yeah, but he's playing a Dillinger, not Edward Dillinger. Just
Mm-hmm.
so why are they shoehorning Dillingers in all the time? But making I
I
say all the
don't know.
time,
It's
it's only been three
strange
films, but it's
because I
weird.
just, well, put it this way, I just hope he's not wasted like Cillian Murphy is, because Cillian Murphy, as is always the case, is quite good in the scene he's in. But it just seems so odd that you put an emphasis on that character, that you have him in the film, only for him to literally not just disappear, but never come back. But
But
it's the same with Encom.
it was all
That whole strand just dies. What, like 15 minutes into the film? It's just
not even
gone.
50 minutes. It was the build up for it all as well. It was like they're talking about this new program that they're going to release,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
like Encom 7 or whatever the fuck it's called,
Yeah,
Flim
yeah, yeah.
12. I don't know what it was called.
It's basically just like so much of
It's
this film
it's
because it's a
it's
2007
Windows
film.
XP or Windows 11 or
Well, it's
whatever it
just
is.
iOS 7. It's the
Yeah.
iPhone 6 being the same as iPhone 5, charging you a bunch of shit for the same amount. Again, yeah, it's low hanging fruit, but it makes sense.
But that's so they're releasing that, and then you've got this. They go, "Oh, we want to thank Edward Dillinger, great guy," and then he manages to, I don't know, counteract Sam Flynn's hack or whatever. He says it's all
Mhm.
sorted, and he's got give him to free. Tell him it's a free gift every day. So he's setting himself up as he's going to be this big bat. They're setting him up as going to be this big bat. He's going to be something that is going to come back and haunt Sam
That
at
is
the
definitely
through
the
the
vibe
film.
I got because you've got like the head of Encom and he's kind of like clownishly evil, but you can see straight away that he's not in control. And the guy really running the show is Cillian Murphy's character. And
Yeah.
they make they put such an emphasis on that. So you're just like, oh, that's clearly going to pay off later in the film. Well, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. And it's like I said, at that point, when you're watching the first half, you're like, oh, you're building up some really cool ideas here. I like the idea of, fundamentally, the reason I was excited to see Tron in 2010 and why I'm still, despite this movie's faults, super excited to see Tron Ares. It's like if ever there was a series that should come back every 15 years or so, it's Tron. I like the idea that it comes back in line with like big movements in technology. It's like, obviously 82 was in line with like the start of home computers. And then in 2010, obviously they're sending up like iPhone and the internet, social media to a certain extent, blah, blah, blah. And now in 2025, you can do something new again. It'll still be Tron, but you can, kind of commit to some new ideas. And they do that, but basically it's just a movie where it hasn't picked a lane. That's the big issue. It's like, do you want to be basically an aesthetic remake of the first one? Do you want this to be a father and son story? Do you want this to be a technology story? Do you want this to be some kind of like spiritualistic technology? What does he call it? Biomechanical jazz, man, or whatever that shit.
Yeah.
It's like all that stuff is interesting in and of itself, but none of it's given the time to breathe, and thus nothing really matters again by the end of the film, which, like you said, is a shame because as I mentioned at the top of the podcast.
Sorry, before you go on, because you just said you were looking forward to Tron
Yeah, yeah,
Ares, and
yeah.
I want to counter
Sure,
down.
sure, sure.
I'm not looking forward to Tron Ares because the
Okay.
rumored story of that is my biggest problem with this film,
Mm-hmm.
where Jared Leto supposedly is playing a program called Ares and he's sent to the real world.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest problem with this is how Cora is able to, and yeah, okay, I know Sam goes into it and he becomes a program, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But how is it working the other way? I don't understand how all of a sudden a program is being manifested as a living, breathing human. Like, what the fuck? And where does that go then? Like, she has no ID. She has no fucking job. She has nothing to speak of. I don't understand how they're able to
I
manifest these things in the real world. And it really, really pissed me off.
I love the fact that you get caught up on the fact that she doesn't have ID or anything like that. I'm like, we're going on the basis that he is the major shareholder in Encom. He's going to take over the country, the company. I think he's pretty like he's a smart guy. He can find ways around that in terms of getting her a passport, whatever, getting her ID.
But
That I
how are
can
you
buy.
manifesting her
But
into the real world?
yeah, they don't really explain that. Although they hardly explain how Flynn can get into the grid. Like basically, what do? They go full Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah,
When I was watching, I was
they
like,
digitize them, don't they?
that's yeah, but they seem to got the same ray gun.
Yeah.
And it's like the same. All it was missing was a baseball through the window. That was it. Other than that, it was just like he presses the wrong button, and it's like, oh, I don't seem to hear the giant ray gun powering up behind me. That's gonna shoot me the fuck into technology. I'm willing to let that go. I actually know some people, their criticism of this film, funny enough, is that it didn't go into the real world. That should have been the story
No.
in this one. I actually think you've got to do that with the third one because
I
you've done
know
the grid now.
I get it. You've done the grid, but you can't bring programs into the real. I don't understand how you're
You
bringing programs
can.
into the real.
Yeah,
I don't
I don't
understand it.
like
So,
the thing is they don't explain it at all because
and the
it's
other thing, who's paying to keep Flynn's arcade afloat? Who's
well,
paying to keep the power going? He's been gone for 20 years.
yeah, but dude, I think you're underestimating just how rich Flynn is. He's mega rich. Like
No,
he's
but
basically
who's paying to keep that arcade afloat? Sam has never been there. That arcade.
you are once again getting caught up on energy bills and
Yeah, yeah.
everyday
The power
documentation
was
is
working.
getting.
Everything like it was all dusty as fuck, but everything was like it was brand new.
Well, we're already saying about how this film is a bit too messy and is a bit too full. Do you really want a 20-minute like sequence where he's trying to figure out the energy and utility bill so he can get the place turned back
I
on?
want to know how he's using a fucking Nokia to hack Encom.
Oh, well, that is one of the more interesting. Like, there aren't many things other than the de-aging technology which age this film specifically. Because the fashion still looks pretty cool. The city, which I was just like, oh, that just looks generic and cool. I literally said to my wife, I was like, it just looks like Vancouver. It was shot in Vancouver.
In Vancouver, yeah.
Vancouver is such a lovely but utterly generic city. It's like the surroundings are amazing and it looks a lovely place to live, but it's really uninteresting from a architectural point of view. And that's exactly what that looks like. Although I did like the real world stuff because it almost looked like it reminded me a little bit of The Dark Knight, truth be told, the way it's shot. But it almost the way they shoot the chase with the cop early in the film, they almost shoot it like a video game. And I was like, even this stuff looks good. And that's like for all the problems of this film, that's Joseph Kosinski's bread and butter. And I know we have different opinions on him because you don't like Maverick. But whether it be Maverick, Oblivion, again, a movie which is completely style over substance, and I suspect F1 will be the same story. He does do stylish better than almost any other director out there. His films look unilaterally gorgeous. And the same is true of this film, whether it be the real world or the grid, everything looks amazing. And I know you have your issues with Flynn's arcade, but when he pulls up, the arcade looks amazing. He goes in, it's all the sights and sounds you would expect. I love the fact that he goes into a secret dungeon behind the arcade machine.
Yeah.
But how the fuck he gets...
I totally agree with all that. I think that all looks great. And I'm with you on that. I just want a bit of a better explanation as to why it's still up and running.
Yeah,
why,
I got you.
Like,
and sorry, I lost your plot thread then. Where you mentioned about the Nokia and the fact that I was saying it looks like there aren't many things that give it away as 2010. There are two bits of really distinct product placement. One of them is awesome, and it's the Ducati. He rides the bike, it's badass. He pulls up, you can see his Ducati on the side. Like that's badass. I kind of want a Ducati. The next bit is a Nokia phone. You're just like wowzers. Even in 2010, nobody was using a fucking Nokia phone, dude.
Tell you what I wanted. I wanted a shipping container house.
Well, that's another Joseph Kosinski special. He doesn't do man
awesome.
caves. He does man containers. He did the same thing in Top Gun Maverick. I'm not sure if you remember, but apparently Tom Cruise or Maverick lives in a container. It's just a larger container with a plane, but it's not a house. It's just that's where he's got a sofa. He just kind of deals in ultimate man caves. And that's exactly what... not Sam Flynn.
Sam Flynn.
Yeah, Sam Flynn. Yeah. That's what he has, down by the water.
Was awesome.
It's so cool.
Yeah, because for some reason he's got the like garage door type thing where he can drive his bike in right up to the fucking settee. But then the other side of it, Alan could just come in from the front because it's just connected to the fucking dock.
Yeah.
It just the security on that thing was ridiculous. There wasn't none.
There was but it was pretty badass all the same. It was one of those, if you lived on your own, you're just like, I kind of want to live there. You couldn't live there with your wife, but if you decided, I'm not going to deal with women, I'm just going to live in a man cave on the edge of Vancouver, you're like, yeah, that looks like a pretty fucking awesome place to live with my motorbike and my dog.
I'll get 4 shipping containers and just put them in a weird, like, a pattern and just fucking live like that. Because there was
Yeah,
an
yeah.
upstairs to that you never saw. I loved it. I thought
Yeah,
that was
it's
great.
cool. Although, sorry, there's one other thing which does age this film before I forget. Just the use of random parkour. It's easy to forget that as of it all started with a French movie called District 13 in
Oh,
2004,
District
which was like
13.
it blew up this whole like parkour thing. And then obviously there was the opening sequence of Casino Royale where it had the parkour sequence, which is admittedly amazing. And it bleeds through into this film where Sam is just randomly doing little bits of parkour all the way through the film. And it's just that, like, there was like a decade. It was like from 2004 to 2014. It was just fucking Hans Zimmer scores and parkour were
Yeah.
everywhere. You just couldn't escape the bastards.
Give District 13 its due, mine, because the two stars in that, the one was Cyril Raffaelli, who's like the copper, but then the other guy, David Bell, was the actual inventor of parkour.
Yeah. Oh, don't get
Yeah.
me wrong. Like, it's unbelievable, but they just overdid it. It was just in every goddamn movie. And I
I was
mentioned,
going.
oh, sorry.
I was going to say I agree with you because it was in everything. Did you ever watch the remake with Paul Walker?
I did not watch the remake with Paul
Brick
Walker.
Mansions, I think it was called.
I'm
It's
fine not to watch that. I
it's
enjoyed
not good.
District 13, and I was like, no, no. And the thing is, by then I've seen enough fucking parkour. The whole thing with District 13, it was a good film, but the big selling point was like, wow, look at these people running around like they're at the circus. It was fucking unbelievable. We'd never seen anything like it. But then, like 3 years later, it was like bullet time. It's like I've seen this so many fucking times now.
Well,
And
they doubled down and did a sequel, didn't they?
yeah,
Ultimatum.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I watched that as well. That was okay.
I might have to watch District 13 now.
But again, speaking, well, there's two things actually Garrett Hedlund does too much. One is parkour. The other one, when he's not doing parkour, I'm not sure if you noticed, he walks a lot like Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
Yeah, yeah.
He's got a big
I had
ass
that down.
wiggle going on. He does the shoulders and everything. I'm just like, again, did nobody say, Garrett, dude, you can just tone down the walk like 10%? It's bordering on parody at this point.
So when Garrett Sam is doing his disc battles or any of his battles, is he very, very good or very, very bad? Because he's doing a lot of jumping in the air and spinning and avoiding discs, but he keeps landing on his face or his back. He's not actually landing on his feet. So is he getting thrown by the air of the disc, throwing it like, or
No.
is he dodging these? Like, what the?
I think they're doing the whole classic, like he's appeared in this world. He's clearly got natural talent. So that's why he can do the flips and stuff. But they don't want him to be amazing straight away because he's not from that world. So they do the whole thing where it's like they show him being really skilled, but then falling flat on his face, but always being just good enough to survive. So they do that in those films. It's a total trope where you got this really talented dude, but he's a fish out of water. So he's getting by on his natural talent. But at the moment, at least, he's still finding it hard because these aren't his surroundings. So he can just about survive. So he's talented enough that he doesn't just get killed fucking immediately. But especially when like, is it Rinsler? Who is just Tron? Like again, they try and palm that off in the second half as a surprise. Like the three big reveals are Rinsler is Tron. We fucking know when Tron becomes good at the end. You're like, it's as unearned as it is totally expected. You just knew it was going to happen.
God.
And they do this big build up about Clue's plan. It's like, dude, we know what his plan is. He wants to go to Earth. Like, it's so fucking obvious. And they really do try to sell all three of them as surprises. It's like, yeah, guys, we know. You really don't have to be a genius.
How does Rinsler become good as well? Because apparently Kevin Flynn can just go Tron from a mile away,
Be
and
cool.
Rinsler will go, I protect the users. Like fuck off,
It's
mate.
again
And the other thing is
like so
calling
much
these.
in the second half of the film totally unearned is the problem. There's no hint that Rinsler is having any kind of issues with being a total badass. And then, like you said, one little hippie, oh, remember who you are. And he's like, oh yeah, I do remember who I am. I'm going to be a good guy now. And the bit when he falls in the water at the end, it's like, yeah, we get it. He's still alive.
Yeah,
Jesus fucking
calling
Christ.
these fucking things Tron as well. I said it with the first one. It wasn't about Tron. He was a secondary character, barely in this. And okay, you can make it's Tron Legacy, so it's the legacy, but it's not even a legacy of Tron. It's nothing. Why are you calling it Tron?
It should be called The Grid.
Yeah,
It really should be called The Grid.
yeah,
100%. Yeah, it's weird that it's called Tron. When I was younger, I used to think Tron was the big spinning head thing at the end of the first film, not the character kind of thing. So
yeah.
it's it really should be called The Grid. But we are shitting on this film. What we should say is two things this film does amazing. Well, three things. Like actually, before we get to the two things it definitively does very well, what do you think of Garrett Hedlund? So we mentioned this towards the end of last week's podcast when we said we were going to do this. One of my big issues with Garrett Hedlund is that he just looks and sounds so much like Charlie Hunnam. And I was amazed to find out that not only did they play brothers in Triple Frontier,
Yeah.
but they are also best friends in real life. And I'm convinced that they've been stealing jobs off each other. And it's the reason that neither of them have quite made that next step up to become genuine megastars. They've both done really well. But like I said last week, with Pacific Rim, if you told me Garrett Hedlund was in Pacific Rim, a film I've seen 7 times, I'd be like, he might actually be in it. He might be the lead of that film. I just can't remember. They're so similar. And as much as I like both of them, the issue is they're both slightly generic. It's the reason that Jeff Bridges has gone on and had such a great career and why he was so memorable in the 80s, whether it be in this or Starman. He wasn't as naturally handsome as the likes of Charlie Hunnam or of Garrett Hedlund, but what he was interesting. He had an interesting intonation, the way he carried himself, even his look. And I just don't think Garrett Hedlund quite has that in him, sadly, to carry a film.
So I've got no issues with him. I've always liked Garrett.
No issues.
I've always liked him. I just don't think he's been given the roles. Then again, it's not because he's been given loads of roles. It's just for some reason it just never materializes into anything else. And he's passable in this. I think he's great.
Yeah,
he's passable. He's not the problem with this film.
No. And but the thing is, I think his big issue is he just doesn't have that intangible megastar something. It was like my wife and I were talking about what's it called the new Captain America film. And Anthony Mackie's in it, obviously, is the new Captain America. Anthony Mackie is a perfectly good actor, and he's fine. He's been good in all the Marvel films. I'm not convinced he's got the thing that you can put. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons they have Harrison Ford in this movie. And I'm just not convinced he's going to carry the whole Captain America mantle in the same way that Chris Evans did. Because as much as I like him as an actor, I just don't think he's got that intangible superstar something. And I think it's the same thing with Garrett Hedlund. And even, like I said, with Charlie Hunnam. I like them both a lot. I just don't think they're quite movie stars.
I don't think that's a fair comparison. Because even when Falcon became Captain America in the comics, he couldn't carry Captain America's mantle because you can't. You can't.
Oh no.
I don't think
that was a bad example.
So I don't think it's gonna. It's not going to be as good as the other Captain America films, but it'll be serviceable on. I'm saying serviceable a lot in this podcast. It's going to be serviceable on its own. Like I think it'll be fine. Yeah, it'll just be fine.
No. But my issue isn't the whole the Captain America thing is a side thing. Forget about that. It's more the idea. I'm suddenly watching the trailer. And forget about the fact that it's Captain America film. If I'm just watching this and he's the star of this big budget movie, and I'm just like, I just don't buy him as a leading man. I just don't.
They say it in the trailer, don't they? You're no Steve Rogers. Anthony Mackie is no Chris Evans.
But
they're completely different. So I buy Garrett Hedlund and Charlie Hunnam. You confusing them? I get that.
Okay. Take away the whole, because I think you're getting caught up on the Captain America thing. If, say, Michael B. Jordan hadn't been in Wakanda Forever and Michael B. Jordan was playing Captain America, I think it would work. Nothing to do with Captain America, just because I see Michael B. Jordan on screen, I'm like, that guy's got that extra something where I'm like, he's the kind of guy you can sell a movie on. I just don't think Anthony Mackie's there, and I don't think Garrett Hedlund's quite there either, sadly.
I get that, but the problem I'm seeing with that, and this has become a Disney podcast all of a sudden. It was because Tron Legacy, but he was Falcon, who's now becoming Captain America. So Anthony Mackie was. It's always going to be that character. So I've got no problem with that. I've not got a problem with
Sorry, that bit's irrelevant to my argument.
But Anthony Mackie's been Falcon in all of these films. So
sorry. The Falcon thing is completely irrelevant. It's nothing to do with whether he's Falcon. I'm just talking. I use that as an example. But what I'm talking about is when I watch the trailer, forget about Captain America, forget about all that. I'm just talking about a big budget movie, and I see Anthony Mackie at the front of it, and I'm just like, I don't buy you as a leading man. In the same way, I see Garrett Hedlund. I really like you as well. I can't see you selling me on a movie. I can't see your name above a poster, and I'm like, I'm going to see a movie because Garrett Hedlund's in it or Anthony Mackie's in it.
I get that part of it. And he did Elevation a while back. And he wasn't a leading man in that. It wasn't a very good film with Morena Baccarin. But if you see him in Twisted Metal, he's great.
Yeah, so it's a TV show.
It doesn't, but I think it's just for any actor,
Mhm.
It's what the what's the word? Not the vehicle. It's the
The
material
material.
that the material.
So I don't buy
So
into
it's
that.
the right material.
I think some people have it and some people don't. I know you're not a fan of it, but a perfect
I
example
Here we go.
was always Russell Crowe versus Orlando Bloom. You watch Russell Crowe in Gladiator, within 2 minutes, you're like, I fucking buy it. Put this movie on this motherfucker's shoulders, and we're off the races. And then they did Kingdom of Heaven, and within 2 minutes, I'm watching Orlando Bloom, and I'm just like, I don't buy it. I don't fucking buy him
See,
as
I'm
a
the other
leading
way.
man.
Kingdom of Heaven director's cut, fucking great. I think
It
he's
is a
great in
good
it.
film, but
Yeah.
I just don't think he's a leading man in quite the same
But
way.
I've never, but I get that because I've never put much stock
Mhm.
in this guy selling like you said, oh, this guy's a leading man, this guy can carry. I've never put much stock in an actor. I like the story, I like the film, and if they're good in it, that's fine. And it's that's one of the reasons why I don't like Tom Cruise, because a lot of people keep going, oh, Tom Cruise is in it, it's fantastic film, fucking great film. Tom Cruise is the movie star of movie stars. Tom Cruise is a cunt. I do not like him.
Well, forget about Tom Cruise because we know you don't like him. But I find it strange that you say that because obviously, with you and I, so many of the films we've gone back to are 80s films, and
Yeah.
nearly all of them were vehicles for megastars. Like that, it was the era. It wasn't the era of the story. It wasn't even the era of the franchise. It was the era of we're going to put Schwarzenegger's face on the front of this, and it's going to be his name everywhere. And it almost doesn't matter what the story is. We're just like Schwarzenegger, and he is the perfect example. Schwarzenegger can barely act by any reasonable measure, but he is a fucking movie star.
Yeah, but I'm not watching it for Schwarzenegger. I like, because I never watched Conan.
Oh, you're not gonna be
Commando.
one of those. You're not gonna be one of those guys who tells me that the Terminator could have been anyone, right? You're not
No,
gonna
no,
be
no,
one of
no,
those
no. I'm
guys.
not saying that. What I'm saying is nobody could have been Commando. Schwarzenegger did fantastic, but I didn't go in to watch it for fucking Schwarzenegger. I watched it because it was an action film. I was an action fan, so it
Mhm.
didn't matter who was in it. That's why I've watched all these straight to DVD B movies and then 900 sequels, because I like the story. I just like film. It doesn't matter. It
Yeah,
doesn't have to
maybe
be the
that
movie star.
explains the difference where you're willing to go into that like B movie straight to DVD
Yeah,
catalog, and I'm not willing to because I'm just like quite often the leading men in those films are just not up to snuff. The whole point is if they were good enough, they'd
I
be leading
totally
films.
and I totally get, and that I think that's now
Mhm.
where
That's
we've
probably
we've got
we've
to the
got there
point of it,
eventually.
and that's why we can't see eye to eye on some things. Like I said, and I'll watch
Yeah.
these films. That's why Scott Adkins I think is fantastic, but he's a
He is
B
good.
movie star.
Yeah.
Like bless him, he is a B movie star. That nobody is going to give him his own
No, but that
hundred
yeah, that's
million
the
dollar
point. And it
blockbuster.
depends how you look at it. It's like I love that guy. I want him to be the guy who rolls in for like 10, 15 minutes, does something awesome. He's got more than enough charisma to like fly in for a scene. But yeah, nobody's gonna make 100 million, 200 million film starring Scott Adkins, sadly. It
Yeah,
is what it is. But anyway, moving on to the two things which definitely do work. The
that was
visuals
20 minutes ago.
I know beyond the Clue thing, and we've already gone into that. We know Clue looks terrible. Everything else in this film, while it does look a little bit like an iPhone advert, looks fucking phenomenal. And they went you don't get it on if you watch it on DVD or if you watch it on Disney Plus. Their attempt at doing the whole Wizard of Oz thing is basically the opening real world sequences are all in widescreen, and
Yeah,
then when he goes into the grid, the bars disappear and it goes full screen. In the cinema, if you went to see this in 3D, which I did, that's where it came to life. Like there aren't many examples of really good 3D. Avatar being the obvious. Again, I know you're not an Avatar fan, but on a technological level, it was miles ahead of everything else in terms of the 3D. This was one of the other ones because the first 20 minutes of the film was all in 2D, and when he got shot by the Honey I Shrunk the Kid ray and goes into the grid, it suddenly became 3D, and that really did, quite literally and figuratively, add that extra layer and give you that visual oomph. And I love this, like, again, we mentioned the whole style over substance. When he gets suited up by the four cyber chicks, it's
yeah.
completely style over substance, but it's so stylish. I'm just like, all right, this is cool. Disc Wars look amazing. But I actually think this film's biggest problem is that 50 minutes in, you get by far and away the coolest bit of the films. The light cycle sequence is so much better than the rest of the film. The way the soundtrack kicks in by Daft Punk, which is amazing throughout. The slow-mo bit when he has the stick and you get the music and he jumps into the air and the bike appears
Yeah.
around him. I'm just like, oh, this is the fucking shit.
But they
But
knew
it's 50 minutes in.
they knew as well, right, that they had something with that, because they decided. was it once or twice more? The slow mo when they jump in the air and they do it
They do it
when
twice.
Clue,
Yeah,
yeah,
they know how
Clue
cool it
does it.
is. They do it. They do slow mo twice in the space of like 20 seconds.
But they do that, but then they do it again at the end of the film when they do they jump in the air again and they open their handle and it becomes that flying bike thing
Oh yeah,
at
yeah,
the
yeah,
end.
yeah, yeah.
So
That's kind of
you
cool.
I said maybe you've done it once too many, but I agree with you. I think it looks great. The disc battles look great. I love the arena where they were like crossing over with each other. They
Oh,
were
the bit
better.
when they go into the light cycle battle first and they do that wide shot and they've got all the fireworks going off.
Yeah.
I'm just like aesthetically, that's just all right at my alley. And like the way the music kicks in when this movie's at its best, and you get that combination of audio, aesthetic, and style. It's like there's nothing. And I think that's the reason I've always had an attachment to this film because I've gone back so many times and watched bits of this movie. This is the perfect film to watch your favorite 10, 15 minutes over and over again. Like I'll never get bored of the light cycle battle. I'll never get bored of the audio during the nightclub scene. But the reason I couldn't remember the second half is because I think every time I get to that part of the film, I just stop watching because I'm just like, oh yeah, this bit, the bit with the train, it's just rubbish. It's just rubbish.
Have you seen Secret Level yet on Amazon Prime?
I
Have you
have,
seen
yes.
all of them? Yeah. So I was watching that when it came out in December, and there was the Unreal Tournament one, and I'm watching that and thinking, where have I seen this style of the arena moving and everything? And then I fucking realized when I was watching this, I've seen it from Tron
It's a great
Legacy,
show. Yeah, it's really
like
close.
the way the arena and everything moved, and it became the light side battle. And I love it as well because Clue, every time Clue was doing something, he's not doing it on his own. He's
Mhm.
acting all this big, but he's got all his little guys around with him as well. Like
Yeah,
even
he's
the
got
light cycle
Rinsler and
battle.
his little buddies, doesn't he?
Well, Rinsler wasn't even there on the light cycle battle, was he? You just
No,
because I
he
was
came in. He came in
every,
afterwards. So they had the battle with Clue and the other dudes, and
yeah.
then Cora comes in with her like weird light truck. There's a light to everything in this film. Clue gets flipped over the top, but then Rinsler shows up, and they have like an extra battle
Every
there.
time I saw an orange guy in something, and then you see their face, you go, "Oh, that's Rinsler," and then they die, and you go, "Okay, that wasn't Rinsler." I just couldn't
Do you know what it
pick him
reminded
out
me
of a
of?
liner.
It reminded me a little bit of. Did you watch the last couple of Star Wars films? They had the Knights of Ren, and they were all
Yeah,
like
yeah,
being like built up as being like totally badass, and then they all just got smoked. And the big issue was they all looked exactly the same. And I totally agree with you. Rinsler, when he's on his own and he almost has like a growl. You're just like, oh, he looks really cool. But then when he gets his little cronies, they also all look kind of cool and almost exactly the fucking same. And they just is like when it's just Sam and Rinsler and they do the disc battle and like the gravity keeps getting fucked up and he
yeah.
flips onto the roof and they have like that face off again. So fucking badass, looks amazing. But then he just seems to blend into the background, and it's almost like he's like a perfect example of the movie. The whole idea of it being style over substance. He looks amazing. He often blends into the background, and then at the end, they're like, "Oh, maybe we should have some kind of plot attached to him because he's also Alan. He's also Tron from the first film. He's supposed to be a big deal." But it just kind of gets thrown in so casually at the very tail end of the film to no
Yeah.
emotional impact, of course.
I tell you who didn't look cool, bless him, was James Frayne as what was his name? Oh,
Oh,
Jarvis.
is this side bitch?
Yeah, the side bitch as
Yeah,
Jarvis.
yeah,
Because for start they painted him white, like in
yeah.
fucking like albino white, even his eyebrows. But then they stuck what I could only describe as a Lego cockpit piece. Do you know like the old Lego you had when
Absolutely, the spaceman guy.
yeah, the spaceman guy, and then you had the cockpit that you would put like when you
Mhm.
made the ship or whatever. They seem to have just made a bigger one of them and glued it to his head, and it was just fuck.
It's
And
a
why is
good
a
point. It's the
program?
only thing which doesn't really look cool. Maybe that and Cora's car, which I thought was a little bit naff. They're just the
Yeah.
two things in this film. I'm just like, everything else looks kind of cool except for you two.
But why are programs as well made to be sniveling? If this is a program, this program has been written, because the whole point of it, all of them have been written except for the IOs, because they've come out of nowhere. So all these
Mhm.
programs somewhere have been written. So who's writing a sniveling program
Well,
for
I think
Clue?
the idea is that he's basically writing a program, but they get a level of like there's a level of AI there, kind of like there is with Clue.
Yeah,
So they become their own characters, but they're built fundamentally on templates, but become their own characters. So I assume he's created a world with a whole bunch of different character templates, and then via their own AI, they go off in different directions. Whereas the ISOs literally have, remember what's the anime Ghost in the Shell?
Yeah.
It's almost like, random code within the grid has come together to create unexpected life, which Flynn had absolutely nothing to do with, and that's the miraculous thing. It's just this amazing, just life from nothing. Again, this film has these big heady ideas, and a lot of that comes from Jeff Bridges and his whole hippie futuristic thing, but it often rubs up against the plot. And it's like there's always this mirage of substance in this film, but make no mistake, it's a mirage. There's no fucking substance. There's a few good ideas somebody's written on the back of a napkin, but they've added no additional depth to it. They're like, oh yeah, like there'll be like these computer programs as if from nothing. And you have this whole father-son story and all this other stuff, but they haven't written out the rest of the plot. And they're just like, we'll fill in the gaps with Daft Punk and cool visuals. Does it get by on that? Kind of, yeah. But it doesn't actually make for a film with any genuine substance. I just think it thinks it has substance.
I can forgive that for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
What I can't forgive is the fact that these, again, programs seem to have day jobs and downtime.
Mm-hmm.
The sirens, their job apparently is to just be stuck in the wall until somebody else comes along. Then they come out of the wall, then they put him on, they give him his own identity disc, send him to the games. That's great. Then they go back in the wall.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, once this shift is done, she can just grab an umbrella because it rains in the fucking grid, and then she can take Sam to Castor or Zeus or wherever his name is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so they've got danger. Did they have houses? Did they have flats? Did they have pets? What the fuck is going on?
That is a perfect example of this film's like style rubbing up against any sort of substance. It's like you say, the whole idea is that these characters, like, they have their own lives within the confines of the grid, within the confines of that society. But then when you have that sequence, like I said earlier, it's a cool sequence, but it's so style over substance because there's no reason for the girls just to be in those little pods only to pop out, because clearly that's not just their job. She's got she's involved in that world. And yet for that sequence, she's just like a pod person. It would have made more sense if the four girls were just rando girls and it was just like, oh, these are just the pod girls who just dress up programs.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But the fact that she's involved later on, you're just like, well, what the fuck was she doing earlier? Again, nobody's really thought it out. It doesn't really make any sense. Or more realistically, Joseph Kosinski's just been like, fuck it, it looks cool. And honestly, I think that is the answer to like 90% of the questions in this film. It's just like, fuck it, this looks cool. And we're just going to go with it. So you do have to run with it. And as I said, in the first half, I'm willing to run with it because it is so fucking cool. But the second half, it's inviting you to start asking questions of the world, of what's going on. And as soon as you do that, things start to crumble almost immediately. And it's a bit of a shame that the second half's such a blowout after the first half being, like I said, genuinely one of my favorite 50 minutes of cinema of the last 20 years. Like, I know you're not quite as warm on it, but the first 50 minutes, we haven't actually spent that much time talking about just how fucking dope the Daft Punk soundtrack / score is for this film. It's just perfect. And I remember when this came out, it was one of the last soundtracks I bought on disc. I listened to it fucking loads. It's amazing, the visuals, all that jazz. But as soon as it tries to be something more than just a film which looks and sounds amazing, yeah, it doesn't really work, sadly.
But they've taken that from that, like Daft Punk from this film. Mm-hmm. They've decided as well, didn't they? They said, "Oh, the music was what made Tron Legacy." People mention the music a lot more than they mention the film.
100%.
So we're gonna, for Tron Ares, we're gonna double down on the music. So the music. Because it's Trent Reznor, isn't it now?
Yeah, but it's not. I think the thing that's exciting about it is, you think of like recent soundtracks.
It's definitely not fucking Jared Leto. I can tell you that much.
No, well, you think it's, yeah, imagine if it was 30 Seconds to Mars. Usually it's Trent Reznor and Atticus Fitch, I think it is, or whatever they're called. But for this, they're actually getting Nine Inch Nails back together. And I think that's the thing that's going to get everyone excited about the soundtrack again. And that was, like you said, I remember it being a massive deal. The soundtrack for this film was a big, big deal. And I get the impression, especially if they have like a killer track, like almost like an old school, like you release it as a single, and you're like, oh, dude, not just one person, the whole like Nine Inch Nails are getting back together and they're doing the soundtrack for this. I think it's going to be a massive deal. I really do think it will. As for whether the film's going to be any fucking good, who knows? But
I know.
I'm genuinely interested. It's kind of like the same way I feel about Superman. I'm still not sure if I'm gonna like, or I probably won't dislike Superman, but if I'll like, love, whatever Superman. But I'm so compelled. Like if I could only watch one film next year, I'm like, it would have to be Superman. And if it was two, it would be Superman and Tron Ares because I just have to see them and kind of make my own mind up. There's no guarantee, like you said. Tron Ares, it could be a complete washout. I might not enjoy it, but it's one of those films that I absolutely have to see. Have to
Well,
see.
I'm going to watch it because, like I said, for some like the whole base plate, the whole blueprint of
Mhm.
Tron Legacy, Tron Ares, the whole blueprint of this sounds like it should be right up my alley.
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
fucking geek. I'm a nerd. This is the
yeah. Mhm.
kind of thing that I should enjoy and wholeheartedly want to enjoy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Then, as you get into them, and it starts to get away from what you think, what you have thought they should have been, and it starts to.
It's
And
almost, you know what the
my
problem is? It's
problem is,
almost, it's
don't give
almost
Jared
upsetting,
Leto
isn't
a
it?
fucking film. Don't give
Well,
Jared Leto a
I
film.
actually think Jared Leto is one of those weird guys. I think when he's good, he's very good, but if he's not good, he can be super annoying.
He's
But I
Morbius.
took, yeah, well, Morbius, I actually don't think is as bad as some people say, and I don't think he's terrible in it. And I'm comparing this very much to Madam Web, Venom 2, basically all the other ones. I actually thought Morbius was better than those. But it's still, we're talking about the lowest of fucking bars. Morbius is not a good film. He is a good actor potentially, but he can also be super fucking annoying. And I think the big issue is when he's not good, he becomes distracting because he does have that something like you can't ignore him even if he's being bad, but that becomes annoying then because it almost takes over the film. But to come back to your point about the fact that, with Tron and Tron Legacy, they feel like those films that you should love, they're almost the most annoying ones. When it's like you have all the ingredients for like a film or a series, and you're like, I should love this, I should love it. And it's almost an intangible, you can't quite put your finger on it. You're like, why don't I like this? I feel like I
Yeah,
should, but I just don't. And it almost becomes annoying then. You're like, you've
yeah,
just fucked up something and I'm just not getting on with it. So I get it. I get it. As I said, I'm almost the opposite where I have loads of issues with it, but aesthetically and, like I've already mentioned the audio, I'm so on board with it that when I become so disappointed when it doesn't work out. But then for the bits it does, the bits that do work are just completely singing my
yeah.
song.
I get it. For the bits of work, they kind of make the rest of it palatable. I totally
Mhm.
understand that. Can I sorry, and I don't want to derail this anymore, but
No, no,
one
go
more
for it.
time. Jared Leto, after he does Tron Ares, have you seen who he's going to play?
What, in Tron Ares or in
No,
something
no,
else?
after Tron Ares, his
No,
next
no
film
idea.
after Tron Ares. Skeletor.
Oh shit, no, I did see that. And
Yeah.
again, potential like that is
I but
one
as
of those
much as I've said
interesting
he's a
things.
dick,
I think he'd be good.
as much as I've said he's a dick and thing, I kind of want to see a Skeletor.
Yeah, dude, I think it's a really interesting choice. Like that, and that is the thing with Jared Leto. It's nearly always interesting for better and for worse. It's like it can be a complete train wreck, or somehow he can do something special with it. He's clearly a bit of a douche, which kind of makes things, him harder to like. But when I heard Jared Leto as Skeletor, I'm like, dude, I'm kind of in for that. I really am.
Yeah.
The only problem is I still want Dolph Lundgren as fucking He-Man. That's the problem, man.
Oh, mate.
He was the
I
perfect He-Man. The thing
so
is, even he doesn't want to be He-Man. He hated being He-Man.
so over the Christmas period, Liam gave me a He-Man action figure, and I'm looking at it now, and it's fucking great. And it's Dolph Lundgren's He-Man action figure, mate.
Which
As
is,
you
yeah,
know, he
the
bought it.
true He-Man as we all
Yeah,
know. Not the bullshit cartoon one, the Dolph Lundgren version from '87.
but now you've opened the can of worms because I need to put Skeletor next to it, and I want to know now if they do Blade.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
can you get like the actual Skeletor, but the Frank Langella Skeletor action
I
figure?
think so. I think because the action figure range that you got, they do a
Mhm.
Skeletor of it, so I'm pretty sure it's the same one.
That would be pretty dope because
Yeah,
like my favorite bit is when they do have the showdown at the end. This will be our final battle. They kind of hit the
yeah,
things and the music. Oh my God, that fucking sequence. The music's just the best. Dun, 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 dun. I could just talk about Masters of the Universe again, a film which I know isn't great, but I absolutely fucking adore. Um, As for the second half, it's not all terrible. And when I say terrible, what it really is underwhelming. I actually think the light plane sequence, which you touched upon, is kind of cool when they jump off the edge. And,
it's cool. It's
yep,
cool, but it's too long. That's the
it is a
problem
bit
with it.
too long.
It's cool because it's the same thing over and over. Where Sam gets the turret and then he's got to take out these people, and they're picking them off one by one by one by one. There's like fucking five of them
It
before you
needs to be
even.
spread out. Like the turret
Yeah,
sequence, I like the idea of the turret sequence because it almost reminds me of the Atari games, which Tron is fundamentally based upon. And the idea of like that fixed seat and shooting down, like that very much is a kind of late 70s, early 80s arcade game in many respects. But I totally agree with you. It's too long and they needed to spread them out. Like my biggest issue is they set up when he goes to Flynn's man cave in the mountain, yeah. And it's very much, in case you hadn't noticed, 2001 Space Odyssey. There's a sequence at the end of 2001 Space Odyssey. It's basically the same room. It's clearly inspired by that, which is fine. But what they do is they show you Flynn's original light cycle from the 82 film, but all in white. And they're like, oh, it's still the fastest bike on the grid. And you're like, awesome. Do you know what this part of the film is screaming out for? A chase sequence. It just needs an action sequence to cut through all of this fucking plot. What happens? He takes the bike, he rides it at a sensible speed into town and immediately gives it away for a coat. What the fuck is that? Like it was the bike version of Cillian Murphy. You built it up, you put him there. What's the term you've used a whole bunch of times about the gun? Where if you see the gun... Chekhov's gun. I thought it was going to be Chekhov's Cillian Murphy, Chekhov's bike, where you set them up and they have to show up later in the film. Cillian Murphy doesn't show up. And instead of having what could have been an awesome chase sequence with the original light cycle in white, it looked badass. He just rides it into town and just hands it off immediately. What? And instead they have, like you say, a 15-minute light plane sequence, which should have been 5 minutes. It's another criminal choice as far as I'm concerned.
It's the other thing as well. Like towards the end, when he's rescuing Cora, and they've got the build-up for this army, Clue's giving his big army speech. We're going to take... That fucking army do nothing. All of a sudden, there's only 5 guys in the plane.
Yeah.
You take out those 5 guys, Rizla,
that's right.
What's his name? Rinsler takes out Clue, but Clue doesn't get taken out. And then they have this weird like little standoff before Cora and Sam go into the real world.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what's happening with this? The army are just still stood there going,
are we going or not? So
are we
going? A big speech. Are we staying? Is it tomorrow?
Where's
I
Clue?
can't remember.
Where's Clue?
Very strange.
Clue I think gives a speech and he's just gone up. Like, I don't understand. Do we just stand here until Clue?
Yeah. I'm not going anywhere until he says. You've seen what he's like with other guys. I'm fucking staying put. Dude, he's been like an hour. Yeah, but dude, are you gonna be? It's like being the first guy to go to the buffet. So I'm not going to be the first guy. If one guy goes, the rest of us will go. But I'm not going to be the fucking guy. I'm not getting killed by Clue, dude. He's got a temper.
Did you hear what he did to Lego Cockpit Head? That Jarvis guy? Fucking hell,
that would have got around the grid. People would have heard about that on the grid for sure. Although, just before we wrap this up as well, just out of interest, what did you think of Olivia Wilde as Cora? I actually think she was pretty good, and she's one of these weird actresses who was like, she had her shot. She was in this, she was in Cowboys and Aliens, The Change Up, In Time, Rush. And then for one reason or another, she just kind of disappeared. I knew she was in, and she was actually quite good in Don't Worry, Darling, another film which actually didn't land the plane at all, but aesthetically was quite nice at least. But I had totally forgot that Oliver Wilde was a thing in like the 2010s. But yeah, she's quite good in this though.
I've always liked her, and yeah, she was good in this. And again, I'm going to say it again: she's serviceable. It is what it is.
I think she is like falling into the same bracket as Garrett Hedlund. Like she's good, but you know the problem is you don't miss her. You're not like, oh wait, what happened to Olivia Wilde? I'm only saying that now because I'm watching a movie with her like 15 years later. But I had forgotten that Olivia Wilde was a thing, to be honest.
Because I don't like as well that they're forcing a relationship between Sam and Cora. There's not enough time to build a relationship.
Yeah.
He takes her into the real world, and now she's basically just indebted to him. She's stuck with him because, as you've said, once he gets her all these IDs and stuff, if she decides to leave on her own, he could just fuck her over and go, no, that's a program.
Like, and the other thing is, it's completely sweeping under the rug what is a potentially, again, interesting product. Like, she's not human. She's a computer program, and he's falling in love with a computer program. Yeah. You think about it being done properly in something like Blade Runner 2049. That did it in like a really interesting way where it's an important part of the plot. Here, there's just one moment when it cuts to Jeff Bridges sitting in the back with a little grin on his face of saying, oh, there's my son. He clearly wants to fuck that robot or program. But like, is that allowed? Is that acceptable? No. Can they do it? Do they have genitalia? I have no idea.
Dude, you said it. Because now she's in the real world. Is she a bot? Is she just a Japanese sex bot at this point? Does she have her own feelings?
We don't know.
Does she...
We don't know. It's not dealt with at all. It's just another plot thread which doesn't really go. Well, it goes somewhere, and so much it shows the real world, but they don't add any depth to the concept. So it just happens. And then, like you said, as soon as you stop and think about it, you ask 12 questions then, because none of them are answered in the film. None of them. They don't even broach the subject. Bizarre. Anyway, let's move on to favorite sequences, because I want to, step away from this film with, the kind of positives in my mind, because there was a lot I liked about this film. And for me, it's super easy. It's the light cycle sequence. It starts with the Daft Punk soundtrack coming in, the digital fireworks, and then the awesome light cycle sequence. It's legitimately one of my favorite action sequences of the 21st century. I absolutely adore it.
High praise.
Indeed.
I wouldn't go on and say it's like one of my favorite action set. To be fair, I probably couldn't pick one out on the top of my head right now, but it is great.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I honestly think it's the disc battle scene.
Yeah, that's awesome
when
too.
he's fighting Rizla. What the fuck is his name? Resna.
The problem is we've said Trent Reznor a bunch of times, and now you've said Rizla. There's no way you can get to Rinsler.
Sorry, Rinsler. And then Rinsler understands when he knows the gravity's going to shift, so he's already running up there, and Sam's just falling about. I think it's great, and the escape for that is great, and nobody seems to be too worried until they hear it's a user and everything.
It's cool.
I
the
think
problem
it's
is it's when you break it down and go, this is just aggressive frisbee. But the thing is, it's really aggressive frisbee, so it makes it cool. But
I take aggressive frisbee over highlight any day. Although I don't know, highlight could kill you in real life, so.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But no, I'm going to stick with light cycles, then the disc, and then the other shit. Yeah. In terms of loves and hates, number one, unsurprisingly, just the aesthetics across the board. Sans the obvious one. Two, the Daft Punk score, and three, the first 50 minutes. Like I said, the first 50 minutes of this film are occasional dodgy CGI aside, absolute, like almost flawless as far as I'm concerned. I love the first 50 minutes.
For me, it looks great. Again, aside from the obvious, which will go into my hates, it looks great. We didn't give him enough credit, but Michael Sheen, and not
great
just
cameo.
because he lives down the road from me. Michael Sheen's fucking great in this film, and we said it last week, right? He's not in this film. He is in, I don't know, Clockwork Orange mixed with Rocky Horror Picture Show mixed with Labyrinth.
Yeah,
like this dude is fucking everywhere except in the grid.
but he's so compelling that he oddly makes it work, despite the fact, like you said, he is dropped in from another movie completely.
And although I haven't said it because you've given it enough credit, the Daft Punk score I think is great.
Yeah, it is dope. In terms of hates, number one with a bullet, the de-aging tech, it just wasn't there at all. I would argue it's still not there. You can maybe get away with it for a sequence, and they have the ones that stand out to me is the opening in Ant-Man, where they de-age Michael Douglas. But they did so much to do that. Like they got in a person around the same size. So they had an initial actor come in and act the sequence, a younger person. Then they had Michael Douglas act the sequence. Then they put in, of course, they can make that effort because it's one sequence really controlled where he's just walking across a room. As soon as people start jumping, moving around, it just fucking falls to pieces. So de-aging technology didn't work in 2010, and dare I say it doesn't work now. You only need to look at Robert De Niro kicking someone on the floor in The Irishman when he's supposed to be 40, and it's quite clearly an 80-year-old man with a 30-year-old's face kicking some poor sod on the floor. It just looks ass. To the underwhelming ending, as I said, it's not even a bad idea. It's just there are too many ideas all building towards an ending, and none of them take hold, so you just don't care about any of it. And number three, the core plot about the ISOs and the purge ultimately falls flat, despite the fact that it is, on paper at least, a potentially interesting idea.
For me, same as you, it's the de-aging.
Has to be.
Yeah, it's not even the de-aging, it's just a Clue. Like the whole thing of Clue, he looks creepy as fuck. It's just, it doesn't work for me. It kind of takes you out of the film for the most part. Not a huge fan. Not a huge fan of Clue. Secondly, it's Cora going into the real world with no explanation, no
ID,
nothing going on. Like he's gonna be living off fucking Sam. Like Sam's just gonna give her a credit card or something because she doesn't know what money is.
Well, it should be fine. Sam has a lot of money. That is the only thing you'll say is Sam is what he's going to be doing just fine.
Right. And the other thing I want to slash, because maybe it'll be a sneaky fourth then, because another hate was just, I don't understand in any business. I don't understand business a lot, but in any business, where they can just turn around and go, at some point, Sam's just going to take over Encom. You're all doing this job now. You're the CEO of Encom. You're fucking Dillinger's kid. You're all doing this. But as soon as Sam comes in and goes, I'm taking over, you all got to let him.
Well,
Like,
they do to a certain extent. Well, they've got to allow him to be massively involved because he's the largest shareholder. That's the
I'm
point that they're
taking my
making from.
company, is what he said. So he can just walk in and say, oh,
Well,
I'm
that
boss now.
combination of if you're the largest shareholder and your father's name is on top of the building, then you've got a pretty good shot. It's kind of like Batman, Bruce Wayne showing back up in Batman Begins. It's like, oh yeah, of course, Rutger Hauer's there, but he rolls in and he's still
Yeah,
the,
but no,
the
because
major shareholder and his name's on top.
Bruce Wayne had to. I appreciate the Batman one because they thought about it. He had to buy the shares through a bunch of shell corporations to become the largest shareholder and become the owner of
Yeah,
it.
but that's the whole point. Flynn's son already was the largest shareholder because his father had put them in his name. So
Yeah.
they didn't have to explain because he just was the largest shareholder.
No,
So
no,
it's
no.
fundamentally the
I
same
don't
thing.
think it's just going to be. Yeah, well, there you go.
No, it's
You
not.
deal with that
No, no,
fight.
no,
Yeah,
no. They're
it's just yeah.
they're oversimplifying it for sure. But at least they've set it up for it to kind of make sense, I suppose.
And the other thing is, people have too much of a life in the grid. Like, why is it raining in the grid? Why have you got a fucking day job in the grid? I don't understand what's
I
going
don't
on
mind
in the
that.
grid.
Like if you think about it as like a video game, like an advanced video game with like where the AI has become self-aware, it's like with these open worlds, as video games like improve and improve, like it all started with like Shenmue on the Dreamcast, even is like the NPC characters, they go about their day. So even when you're not
Yeah,
talking to
but
them,
they're video
because it's
game
like
characters. This is not a video. This is a fucking program. They're not.
well,
They're
yeah, but it's just an
programs.
advanced. Like the idea is
No,
that the
no,
grid is
no.
just a video game, but just with
It
actual AI,
shouldn't.
I
It
suppose.
shouldn't be fucking raining in that. I'm sorry. It shouldn't be. They shouldn't. They shouldn't be. The entire night. What a fucking job. What are they getting paid with as well for their job to be stuck in pods and then they can just go and party all
Oh
night with
well, and that,
fucking
I do not have the answers to that. Sadly,
yeah.
I do not have the answers. Any alternative titles for this film?
There are, but I've way too many tabs open right now. So bear with me a second.
Tron 2, perhaps? That seems an obvious one.
Yeah.
Or The Grid, maybe?
Uh, Azerbaijan was Tron Miras. I don't know what that is.
Morass?
Yeah. Miras.
Nope, no idea.
No. Croatia was Tron Inheritance.
It kind of work. It's not as it's actually more interesting, but it just doesn't sound great.
India was Tron An Illusion.
No,
Uh, Kazakhstan, Tron Heritage.
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. Tron
That's not
Heritage.
yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah. Peru, Tron The Legacy.
Yeah, bit superfluous.
Yeah. Taiwan, Tron Lightspeed Warfare.
Yeah, if you, that sounds like the like Disney Plus kid show version of the film.
Turkey, The Legend of Tron.
It sounds like a like late 90s video game.
And Vietnam, The Illusion Game Legacy.
Because there was actually like a video game. Oh, actually, we'll wait for the video game section.
Yeah. The Illusion Game Legacy was
that's
the.
rubbish. I like the Croatia one. I thought that was quite good. Tron Inheritance. So that was kind of cool. Any facts for this one?
Yep. So shooting the film lasted only 64 days. Post production, due to the heavy special effects, required 68 weeks. So,
yeah, damn.
Yeah. So I like that. Oh, we're only here for 64 days. 2 months, we're done. Why is this film taking 4 years or 2 years, as it were?
Still paid off.
Yeah.
I mean, other than Clue, it looked awesome.
In an interview, Jeff Bridges noted that as he was being scanned by laser into a computer for CGI effects, he realized the same thing happened to him fictionally in the original Tron.
Yeah. Guess it is. Art follows whatever.
Early drafts of the script did not feature the role of Alan Bradley. It was only after public outcry by Bruce Boxleitner and fans of the original film that Bradley was added to the script. Boxleitner's performance proved so popular, he went on to make public appearances as Alan Bradley to promote the film and returned to play the role of Tron in Tron Uprising, which was a TV show starring Elijah Wood.
Yeah, it's odd that we didn't mention there's a lot going on in this film, but he is good. But, it's a small role, but he is good. He is very much the heart of the film in many respects.
It's the most expensive film ever made by a first-time director with a production budget of 170 million US dollars.
Yeah, damn. I didn't realize it was Joseph Kosinski's first movie, but he did all right.
The wardrobe budget for this film was $13 million. One custom suit alone for the racers cost $60,000.
God damn, man.
Kevin Flynn sets down a metallic polyhedron on the fireplace mantle. Later, when Clue comes in his house, he picks up the same metallic polyhedron. This is a direct homage to Tron, since this is a bit which assisted both the original Clue and Flynn.
That's cool. I was actually thinking about that. I totally forgot about the link between the two. I was like, that's a weird thing for him to like put an emphasis on and pick up. But yeah, cool.
When Gareth Hedlund is breaking into Encom, he forges himself access, and when a door opens, he says, "Now that's a big door." In the original Tron, Jeff Bridges forges access into Encom with the same comment when the door opens. What else we got here? Olivia Wilde's futuristic gear was so effective that when she showed up on set one day as herself, after 2 months' work, she was stopped by a security official who demanded to see ID.
I get like she doesn't actually look like herself in this film. Yeah. Maybe that's one of the things that worked against it. It's not like you watch that and go immediately, that's Olivia Wilde. It does legitimately look like a different person.
When Kevin, Sam, and Cora board the light jet on the flight deck and Cora is making the jet lift off to escape, Kevin says to her, "You got this, Cora. It's all in the wrists." In the original Tron, after Kevin has beaten the video game Space Paranoid at the arcade, he gets asked by an unseen man, "Hey, Flynn, how'd you do it?" He answers, "It's all in the wrists."
See, I mean, this is how this is no, but this is how. Maybe I'm being unfair on other films, but I always think it's better when they do callbacks and there's subtle ones like that. We've mentioned it in a whole bunch of films, like, if it's like a follow-up to Predator, or even with Alien Romulus, when they did they forced in the "get away from her, you bitch," or whatever it is. Yeah. It's just like, oh, dude, it's so forced. It's like you can feel the gears working and that the screenwriter's trying to find a way to just fucking elbow in this goddamn part of and like you said, with these bits, if you don't know the reference to the first film, they still make sense because it's still in context. Like that's what you should be doing, because it should be just a cool Easter egg for people who love the first film. It's like if you're watching like a Predator film and there was like a really deep cut, like a reference to like, I don't know, Jesse the Body Ventura or something, that'd be cool. We don't need it to be the fucking "if it bleeds we can kill it" line. It's like, dude, we fucking get it. We've heard it a million times.
Or get to the chopper and it ended up being the motorbikes. Yeah.
It's just bad. Like, this is the way to do it, man. Like, it's really cool. Like, subtle references to just throwaway moments in the first film. Like, so if you love the first film, you've seen it a million times, you're the guy at the back of the cinema going, "I get that," and everyone else, it just goes over the head, but it still works in and of itself. Sorry, bit of a rant there.
That's okay. At Comic-Con 2010, this movie became the first film to be promoted at that annual con for 3 years running. Like they were promoted in 8, 9, and 10 because it took so fucking long.
That's its link to video games. See, that's what happens it's not usually for movies. How many times you get like a video game where it's shown at like, E3 back in the day in like 2010, and then it's there for like the next 7 years before it finally gets released. Like, Jesus Christ. Usually movies get turned around pretty quick, but this is, if any movie is half movie, half video game, it's Tron, I suppose.
Being a former architect, director Joseph Kosinski was actively involved in the construction of 12 of the film's 15 physical sets.
Nice. Yeah. Don't mess around, get involved.
And we said about Michael Sheen. Michael Sheen drew inspiration from Ziggy Stardust, a persona of singer David Bowie, and Mae West for his performance. West.
Yeah. Okay, you can clearly see the Ziggy Stardust Bowie thing. Mae West came as a bit of a surprise, but yeah, big old performance. Is that all of them, or at least
I'll make this fucking loads? No. I think we'll end it there because there's so many.
Yeah, fair enough. So Hope to Future, remake, sequel, Let It Die, Leave Well Alone. I know we've already kind of touched upon this and we have different feelings. I am more than happy for there to be a sequel, and I think there should be a new Tron film every 10 to 15 years in line with technological jumps. And I don't know if it'll be good, but I'm super looking forward to seeing Tron Ares. So I'm saying sequel.
So I'm looking forward to seeing Tron Ares as well, but I think it's just leave it alone. They keep trying with Tron, and I've said it already a couple of times. Tron seems like something I should love. But you keep trying with Tron. You've tried it with TV shows. You've tried it with video games. You've tried it with films. It just doesn't seem to work. And I don't know if that...
It's weird. What happens is it catches on, but not quite enough. So that's why I think it takes so long. It was the same with Tron Legacy. Tron Legacy made money. And I think it did somewhere in the region of like 400 million or something like that. That kind of weird amount where it's like... It's probably just about made money, especially when you add on like soundtrack and DVDs, Blu-rays, all that jazz. But because it's got such a unique aesthetic, especially for Disney, it's something different. It ends up in all these different things. So it ends up at theme parks, it ends up in video games, stuff like that. So it always just about stays alive. And you can imagine somebody every so often popping and going, we haven't done anything with that Tron thing for a while. And it's just an IP that they have where they know that even if like the lower end of the scale, it'll at worst probably break even. But there's enough of the kernel of a cool idea where you're just like, if somebody nails this, it could be massive, but it's never been massive. Nobody's ever nailed it. Like the first film wasn't massive. Tron Legacy wasn't massive. They've always done just enough, and there's been enough interest to keep it just about ticking along. But is Tron Ares going to suddenly become a $1 billion movie? Probably not. I suspect it'll do very similar numbers to this again, and we won't see it again for another 15, 20 years.
But no, just let it die for me. It's just
Gosh.
you've tried, you've really tried. You just not, it's not succeeding. And maybe I'll eat my words in October when Tron Ares
Maybe.
comes out, but I highly doubt I will.
I just like the fact that I'm like, if it's Disney, I'd much prefer to see them give Tron another go rather than have another Star Wars film or another Marvel film.
I totally get that. But how about we get some? I get that, but how about we get some new IP going?
Well, I mean, shit in one hand and wish in the other and see which fills up first. Sadly, it's Disney. We're going to keep going back to IPs. We are moving slightly away from it. Supposedly.
Sorry, I knew that saying, but hearing you say it is just gross for some reason.
Sorry, I do apologize. Supposedly, there has been an uptick in the sale of new scripts. So the idea of filmmakers going out and being like, oh, we're going to have a crack at and hopefully what they're going to do is just get the budgets right, go back to being like, all right, we'll spend a bit of money on a script and we'll put 30, 40 million into it. And again, dare I say, go back to the 80s and 90s. Just put someone famous on it. Look at Netflix. Mark Wahlberg's films and Adam Sandler, they keep making money because the budgets in those films aren't massive, but everyone's like, well, I know who those guys are. So enough people go and see it. It's like, make an interesting film, stick a star in it, see if it fucking works out. If it doesn't, but the budget isn't insane, it's not going to fucking break the bank. So I hope we get a bit more of that, but whatever. We'll see what happens. In terms of making a change, so if you could only make one change to make this film better, I mean, it's easy for me. Don't let the second half become so plotty. Just get back to style and action, basically. I was like, just pick a lane, make it the father and the son thing, make it the ISOs and the fucking whatever. Just do one of them, stick with it, make the action more consistent throughout the film rather than just front loaded. But yeah, that certainly sounded like 17 changes. I'm just going back to don't make the second half so plotty. There we go.
So you're probably going to expect me to say something along the lines of give Korra, explain why Korra can go into the real world. But no, actually, it's going to be concentrate more on the revolution. You started this revolution. That's the better story. Is the revolution, and then that second half becomes a bit better then because it's the revolution getting you to I keep saying revolution. Yeah, it's what are they called? The army when they
do you know what they should have done? See, you hit the nail on the head. You think, right? You build up the film, the resistance, and you almost do a fucking Gladiator or something like that, and it builds up to a climax where you've got Clue in charge, and you're trying to build up this resistance, and of course you end up battling in what is fundamentally a gladiatorial arena. Only it's a light cycle battle. You defeat Rinsler, and then everyone turns on Clue, and then you get the big kind of showdown at the end. That would have been so much better. The light cycle, they should have been building towards the light cycle battle rather than they blew their wad 50 minutes into the film. They've already had the frisbees. That should have been interspliced at the film. It should have been a revolutionary film. I think you're absolutely bang on.
So but for me, see, it would still be they've got to get to the portal or whatever it is.
It's fine.
You've got light cycles and light tanks going up against Clue's army who are in front of the portal. That's so for me, not the Colosseum. You just got a big fucking war where they're going up and then Clue, and that's the revolution, the resistance. That's a better story than what we got the second half of this film.
I'm always a bit wary of big battles being cool. When I think of something like that, I think of Ready Player One, and it's I should love that sequence, and I don't dislike it, but it's almost cool overload. It's there's a million things going on. You're like, oh, it's RoboCop. It's all the things I love from a kid, but there's the Akira bike. There's fucking Ecto One. There's all this stuff. It's too much. It's too much, and
I get
it's
that,
not cool because it's if you go into someone's house and they've got all this awesome geek stuff, but it's set up like a shop. And it's everywhere. and it's just like there's just too much. Like we're both geeks, so we love all
Is it,
this stuff.
are you talking about my house right now?
No, no, no. You've got yours is a bit more busy, but you know what I mean. People who have just shelves and shelves and shelves, and it's just like there's so much cool stuff that eventually it just becomes like cool. I'm putting that in like
Yeah.
geeky, whatever you want to call it, geeky stuff. That it's just I don't know where to look, so it just doesn't look awesome anymore. That's kind of my issue with that. But anyway, sorry, I'm
I
going down a
get
rabbit
that,
hole.
but you're not gonna because it's the same in is light tanks all over and light
Yeah, yeah,
cycles and
yeah.
stuff. So you concentrate on the one part of it because it'd
Mhm.
be like I guess the Lord of the Rings, Return of the King battle where
That's kind of cool.
yeah where you've got the I can't even say Helm's Deep, is it? Is it Helm's Deep?
The second one's the better battle because the third one has the ghosts, which feel a little bit lame to me. I mean, maybe it
Yeah.
works from the books, but I was always just like, what, the ghosts are just fucking rolling in and killing everyone? I always thought that the second
So
one with the
without the
towers was,
ghosts, yeah, but
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
battle, yeah, I think I think that you could
Oh, yeah,
have
there's some
that
great
done with
battles. Yeah, yeah, of
yeah.
course. Maybe I've just
So
gone to the wrong place with Ready Player One. I do apologize.
but no, but that's my change.
Fair
That would
enough,
be
fair
my
enough.
change. Yeah.
In terms of video games, there have been loads of solid and spectacular Tron games. The
Yeah.
best and most revered is probably still the first by Bally Midway in 1982, which won Coin Operated Game of the Year in 1982. There was a sequel to the original film, which was released for PC. I'm not sure if it made it to the original Xbox as well. And it was relatively well received as like a first-person shooter, but obviously that was, that narrative's all just been pushed aside. It's not canon anymore because of Tron Legacy. If I was going to make one, if I was going to make a simple one, I would. Did you ever play the game Windjammers? Is by Data East on Neo Geo. They did Windjammers 2 quite recently. I think a French
No.
developer actually made the sequel, and it's basically just frisbee battle. Only it's genuine frisbees where you have to score on a goal rather than kill each other. But you could easily kind of turn that into Tron. But if I was going big, and I do this every so often just because it's a game that I love, I would get the Mad Max team from Avalanche back together, and instead of making your way through the desert towards not Bart Town, it's like Gas Town, wherever it is.
Gastown, yeah.
You've got to make your way to the portal via light cycle, light plane. Pretty much your idea for the film, like just battling my way across the grid towards this one point off in the distance. And as you go, you get into light cycle battles, you get into disc battles, there's open world stuff, but you're constantly making your way towards this portal at the end of the map. So that's what I'd go for.
For me, I would think it because you could make it as easy as just having the light cycle races or, like you said, the disc battles or things like that. But if you wanted to go bigger, I do like that idea. But I would have gone Assassin's Creed style by Ubisoft,
Mm-hmm.
where you go into the grid as it was because
Oh, kind of a
in
similar
Ubisoft
vibe.
you
Yeah,
go into
yeah.
the Animus, don't you? You go
Yeah,
into
yeah,
the
yeah.
Animus and you go into the memories, and then you go in back. So we could be in present day, and all of a sudden, then you go into this
Ah,
machine and you
yeah,
end
you
up
can do
back in the
both.
grid,
Yeah,
and
you do
then
both.
yeah,
Yours is better. Yeah, I can't believe I overlooked that. I just want to say Mad Max again. But yeah,
yeah,
Assassin's Creed is absolutely the bang on right because you get both worlds. You get the real world stuff, and then you get to go into the grid via the Honey I Shrunk the Kid laser. You get the
yeah.
best of both worlds. It totally works. So yes, that is absolutely the correct answer. In terms of ratings and recommend, oh no, sorry, best and worst by IMDb. I do apologize.
Yep, that's okay.
So this is where we pick out a random 1 star and 10 star review to hear just how crazy people are.
Right, so 867 reviews in
Ooh,
total.
that's a lot, right?
Yeah,
I'm
and
guessing 100, 110 10-star reviews. I think
okay.
a lot of people like this film.
All right, we'll go 10-star reviews first. How many do you say?
110.
172.
Ooh, that's even
Yeah.
more than I thought. I thought I'd overshot it then, but obviously not.
So, yeah, so 172 10-star reviews. This one was, actually, 8th of August, 2024. This one was written.
No, nice, nice.
A movie truly ahead of its time. The soundtrack, the CGI, the plot, and the themes just wow. I'm so impressed. This is like modern day Matrix. I'm surprised there were no new parts. I would love to watch another Tron film. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. It will be one of the top movies in my list for a long time. It gave me Blade Runner vibes. It was such a visually pleasing movie, just wow. I can't believe they were able to implement such good CGI back in 2010. It makes you wonder what went wrong when you see some of the CGI in today's films. More like this, please. I'm even humming the soundtrack as I write this. It's stuck in my head. What a masterpiece of a movie.
Well, I think he's got a little bit hard. I think the good stuff is indeed really good. And there's your Blade Runner reference there.
Yeah.
Why is it raining in the grid? Because of Blade Runner. That is the answer to that question. So but I'm not a million miles away from that. I just have an issue. Like you said, he was like the themes are interesting. They're just not dealt with any kind of substance. That's the problem.
Yeah. Uh 44 1-star reviews.
Yeah, yeah,
So
seems reasonable.
yeah,
Yeah.
This one, 18th of December 2010. So this dude wrote it pretty much as it's
Oh,
released.
they're the best
Yeah.
ones, like hot off
Yeah.
the press, right out there, like writing it on the way home from the cinema. This motherfucking film.
Right. It's a bit of a long one, but I chose it for the title because I don't know if I haven't read all of it yet, but the title is just, I think he's made a mistake. Slow, boring, incomplete, and pretty.
No, I think that's fair enough because it
Well,
can be all of
pretty.
those things. Pretty is a strange
Yeah.
term to use, but
I'm I
it
th
is a really pretty movie.
I'm kind of thinking he was going for petty. Kind of put the R in there.
No, I could buy into the idea that someone would say
Okay.
pretty for this film. So I get the idea that it's like this film's a fucking mess, but it is good look. Because that's the thing. I think it would be disingenuous outside of the clue thing. If anyone just said this is a bad looking film, it's nonsense. And that is the thing with all Joseph Kosinski films. If someone said they hated Oblivion, I'd be like, cool, I get it. If you told me that film was ugly, I'm like, it's not, dude. It's just fucking not. So yeah, I get it. It's a piece of shit, but it's a pretty piece of shit. It's like, okay, let's hear what you have to say.
In a sentence, go watch the original. Unlike this sterilized computer generated FX production, it has a soul and a script. I had high hopes for Tron Legacy to rise above the many FX 3D releases that seem to flood the theaters lately. After all, Tron harnessed computer generated graphics nearly 30 years ago. And at that time, it was groundbreaking. But now, sure, the graphics are improved, but so is every similar FX assisted production since 1982. Computers are faster, designers have more CPU power to play with, and 3D projection systems finally hit it right. But what about everything else that makes a movie? Like a plot? Sadly, Tron is just another casualty of eye candy. Whether it is the sublime virtual world which rehashes 28-year-old ideas infused with modern pixel engines, or the pretty and naive Miss Wild tucked into her tights and serving as the Megan Fox of Tronville. Tron does not fly. It
Gosh.
grudgingly crawls through a plot that is as expected and transparent as government propaganda. There's a good, there's bad, there's conflict, and there's the evident triumph of good over evil. In the way we meet characters which serve no point, have neither depth nor lifespan, and have nothing but to provide except for additional FX opportunities. Tron closely follows the footsteps of Avatar, a technological demo with a script that can fit in a brochure, stunningly boring. The ultimate star of the show, Bridges, tries hard but can't pull the plot on his own. Once in a while, he utters a notable comment with a hint of Big Lebowski, which draws a few smiles, but
Like
has no one
radical,
else.
man.
Yeah. I'll touch the sky, felt Lebowski as well,
Mm-hmm.
but has no one else in the cast to play with. Wild plays a sexy role, muttering a third grader script, while Headland's role is the juvenile, irresponsible punk with Brad Pitt and Robin Hood aspirations, leaving zero aftertaste. The only other memorable actor besides Bridges is Michael Sheen, which we're blessed with for far too few moments. Blame Disney for that choice. Tron Legacy is a waste of time. 28 years ago, Tron felt as if it had been brought back from the future. The new incarnation is technologically demo, with sprinkles of Bridges and a remarkable soundtrack. Do yourself a favor and watch something else.
See, that's the thing. They've both gone too far down one end of it, but I fundamentally agree with a lot of what both those reviews say.
Yeah.
Like it is kind of vacuous, and it is like we mentioned, all the plot points, you can see them coming an absolute mile off. It's just, a big part of it is like how awesome and how important are the visuals to you. And like to me, they're so good and they're so on the button for me that I'm willing to forgive quite a bit. Not everything, obviously, but if you're just looking for this film for like a genuine story, I can get why people would be like, it's just not there. It just doesn't exist. So I get the 10-star review and I get the 1-star review because in parts of this film, I agree with both. It's a bizarre watch in many respects, and hence why I have such a bizarre relationship with the movie. Which takes us to our rating and recommendations. I mean, for me, it couldn't be any more 3 if it tried. It was like, remember when we did Die Hard with a Vengeance, and we're like the first hour is a 5-star film, and the second hour is a 3-star film, so we end up with a 4-star movie. This is more like for 50 minutes, it's close for me to be in like a 5-star film. Maybe I'll say 4. I'll don't go crazy. And then the second half is unequivocally a 2-star film. So yeah, it's when it's great, it's really good. When it's bad, it's pretty fucking bad. But it settles in the middle, so it's a 3-star film for me. And in terms of recommending it, uh, I literally would just say watch the first 50 minutes and then just turn it off.
uh, for me, it's 2-star. It's the second 2-star in a row after
Mm-hmm.
Men at Work last week. And again, I wouldn't recommend. It's not one that you would. If I was going to recommend, you'd recommend the original Tron, which is very much outdated, to be fair, but still has some good ideas. But I don't
It's
know. I just
actually the original one is a better movie.
yeah,
It is a better movie. But I would literally, if I'm being realistic, what would I say? I'm like, dude, you get, especially if it's someone who knows what Tron is, like you get what Tron is, right? Like about 40 minutes of the film, you're going to get the disc battle and the life cycles back to back. Put on your headphones, turn up the volume to max, watch 15 minutes of this movie, which is fucking amazing. You'll love it. And then just turn it off and don't worry about the rest. And they're like, what about the rest of the film? It's like, what do you think the rest of the film's going to be? Before you answer it, the answer's correct. It's almost certainly correct. Just don't worry about it. Just watch those 15 minutes. And it's one of those films. It's got loads of flaws. I'll almost certainly never watch the whole film again. Will I watch those 15 minutes of disc battles and lifestyle, like loads? I might go back and watch them later tonight. Or even because the score in that moment is so awesome, the scene in the club, your favorite sequence, where Martin Sheen shows up, Daft Punk are literally at the bar, and I think they use that song as a single, like bum, 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 like all that shit. That sequence is fucking amazing. So I'll just watch those 3 sequences, skip the rest of the film. I think that's the healthiest way to do it.
Go back to the original question. Not would you recommend parts of this film?
I wouldn't recommend the whole film. No.
This film. So would you recommend the film? So it's a no, isn't it? It's a no.
No. I would recommend it. If you were like, I would say the good bits are so good that it's worth watching the rest of the film. The bad stuff I don't actually think is even that bad. I just think it's underwhelming. I was like, you'll get through it. You won't regret. I don't think you'd regret watching it. I think it's worth sitting through the rest just to watch the actual awesome stuff, because on a visual and audio level, I still don't think there's anything quite like this film.
I think people are not going to like you if you recommend this film.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
But no, I wouldn't recommend it, and it's a 2-star.
It's very much a 3-star for me, and put it this way, like I think in fairness we gave like Men at Work, we both gave it a 2. Men at Work's not a very good film. There's loads to like about this film. It's just a shame that it doesn't land the plane, but it is what it is. Anyway, so that was my choice, Tron Legacy. Next week is your choice, sir. What are we going for?
It is indeed. So we're going to go for the year 1999.
1999. So we've already done The Matrix. 1999, there's loads of films. Being John Malkovich was 99. Fight Club was 99. Shawshank Redemption was... No, that was earlier.
94.
That was 94. That was much earlier. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of really good films, and obviously I haven't named it yet, so I'm going to need more than
that. One of the actors, Jared Leto.
Jared Leto. So it is Fight Club.
It is Fight Club.
Oh, there we go. So I did mention it first.
You didn't give a definitive answer. No, you just said what comes out in 99. So it's Fight Club, yeah. I mean, as soon as I said 99,
no, because I'm pretty sure Requiem for a Dream is like 94, 95 as well. Yeah. Fuck you, dude. If you pick Requiem for a Dream, I would veto it. Like, Requiem for a Dream is a really good film, but I'm not watching Requiem for a Dream, and I'm sure as shit not talking about it for fucking 2 hours. There's no way.
As to smashed potatoes.
Oh my god, that is a rough fucking film.
As soon as I would have said like 99 David Fincher, you would have got it. If I would have said 99 and fucking Edward Norton, you would have got it.
Well, 99, like I said, there's like a whole bunch of like really awesome movies that were released in 99.
I might have thrown you off if I said... I might have thrown you off if I said 99 and Meatloaf, yeah.
Yeah. No, Meatloaf, I would have got that too. I'm not sure who you could have said. Helen the Bottom Carter, maybe I would have gone elsewhere. I don't know. But yeah, good choice, dude. I haven't seen Fight Club for ages.
No, it's been a while, mate. But I've been wanting to do it for a while. And do you know what? I think it's the right time. It's like kind of a palate cleanser, I think, after a couple of, for me, not good films. So I think
we've done like, it's been a bit of a mixed bag, I suppose. Even this film, which I really do like in many respects, is still a mixed bag. Whereas I think it's safe to say Fight Club's pretty fucking good. So I'll be interested. But saying that, like, how good is it? I've not gone back and watched this film for like, I think it's over a decade, legitimately.
Yeah, I think so as well. I've been together now since 2014. So I got to say, fucking before I was with my wife.
Good shout. No, I'm really looking forward to that one. So yeah, this has been Tron Legacy. Do join us next week for 1999's Fight Club. Anything else before we wrap this up?
No, we can just wrap it up there, mate.
Cool. Okay, I've been Liam. He's been Rob, and you have been listening to the Hey Guys podcast. Cheers, guys. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Oh, and before I forget, where can folk reach us if they were so inclined to?
Well, you can actually reach us on Hey You Guys 80s at Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. But if you want to send us a mail, do heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Send us in your recommendations. Send us in your thoughts about any of the episodes. Just literally talk to us. We'll have a one-sided talk with you on the podcast.
Yeah. We're nice folk. Get in touch. But no, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Hey, you guys!